cutting quarantine for close contacts, scrapping flight bans.
This is what we have been waiting for.
This has come earlier than expected.
Quarantine for inbound travelers is now cut down from 8 days to 10 days, and these are some big market moves.
Now we've got the Hang Seng Index up by 7.6%. These are extraordinary moves that we are seeing across Asian equity markets.
And it's coming on a day when cases are surging, so that's even more of a signal. It's saying, look, we know we've got a COVID problem, but we're willing to tackle it. We know the economy needs this. I think it's a massive signal.
Doesn't it really feel like the sun is now starting to come out? Now that we're starting to see these COVID policies slowly start getting unwound and things going back to normal in China, it really feels like things are going to start getting better for the economy as a whole. And for all of us that really weathered this storm, especially into the summer when we thought that the COVID zero policies would go away and they never did, it's now starting to feel a little bit better for us. And I mean, it's not the end of this whole environment right now, but at least it's a good start. And so that's what I want to dive into in this video, because this is a really good news. This is what we've been waiting for. And so as you guys smash that like button, let me run that intro. Welcome back, everyone. And so I understand that there's going to be some people that aren't really optimistic on this news, and I get it. We've been burned a lot as investors in Chinese securities. I would say that Alibaba shareholders are sort of like the ultimate diamond hand shareholders, if you want to use Wall Street bet type terms. And I was on the China stocks Reddit this morning just to see the news and sort of what the comments were around it, and I found a very interesting comment here. And there was a person who said, 8 days instead of 10 in quarantine, that'll bring business back, opportunity of a lifetime. I get the pessimism, I get the sarcasm, I understand that this isn't the exact solution that you're asking for, because the real solution that you're asking for is all COVID policies to be scrapped away. But it doesn't happen like that. It goes slowly. This is a step-by-step, moving slowly process. And, you know, the news anchor actually described it in such a good way that I just want to let her speak for it.
Isn't it? And certainly that move that it is just going to be 8 days now sounds a lot for us that don't have quarantine, but a huge move in terms of the reopening. And you've got to remember that the reduction is what we saw in Hong Kong, what we saw in Singapore. It's always the first kind of laggard to a full reopening.
And so my thoughts exactly. These easing of the rules, this is the first step to a full subsequent reopening. And so I do believe that we're on the right track here, guys. It's not going to be tomorrow. There's going to be no overnight changes here. But, you know, as I always say, when it comes to stocks, bulls kind of take the stairs and bears jump out the window. And so we're just on the stairs back up. And ultimately, it really doesn't matter to me how long it takes for the stock to recover. I'm an Alibaba shareholder for the next 20 years anyways. But let's dive a little bit deeper into this news release to see exactly what they're mentioning right now. So you can see here, here's the headline: China eases quarantine rules. They ease the flight bans, and ultimately what this reflects is a COVID zero policy pivot, which is something that we didn't expect to happen this early, but I'm really happy that it did. A lot of us were expecting that this would happen sometime in the spring, so they at least get through the winter, but it's very interesting that this is happening, because notice on this chart here that the COVID outbreaks are actually surging right now because they're entering, of course, the winter season once again. And of course, you're getting the tail impacts of easing policies, which obviously is causing COVID to spread amongst the population as well. And so here's the article: China reduced the amount of time travelers and close contacts of virus cases must spend in quarantine. And they've pulled back on testing in the significant calibration of the zero COVID policy. And so they gave out a 20-point playbook for their officials. And that playbook is very much aimed at both reducing the company's global isolation and easing the impact of virus mitigation measures on the ground. And here are some of the 20 new rules that the Chinese officials will be following. So the same shortened quarantine length will now be applied to close contacts of infected people in China, and close contacts of those close contacts will no longer be identified. And the most important system, which was causing travel to sort of not happen in China, the controversial system that penalizes airlines themselves for bringing virus cases into the country, will be scrapped. And so this will obviously increase the number of flights into China. So of course you can see that the airlines in China have surged the most as a result of these rules, because it's the most direct link to the underlying economics of those companies. And of course, as you can imagine, the benchmark for the Asian equities index surged by 8%, which of course, once again, was led by airlines and casinos, because people might be willing to go back and start traveling throughout China once again. And the last point is the most telling point in my opinion. The fact that the changes come at a time when COVID cases nationwide have surged to a 6-month high really reflects an unmistakable change in President Xi Jinping's zero tolerance stance. Now, I'm really happy that they put in this next comment, because this is what I would say that we need to be aware of, is that we don't know exactly what they're going to do. If things get bad, could China go back to their zero tolerance adherence to their COVID zero policies? And recall, guys, and I highlighted at the bottom here, that China's adherence to COVID zero, along with the property market slump, and I would say along also with the global recession that we're starting to see, has hit economic activity this year, which has pushed down consumer and business confidence, and people are stuck in a cycle of outbreaks, lockdowns, and unending testing. And so this is what I mean about things are going to happen slowly. Look, we're starting to see light at the end of the tunnel, but you know, the tunnel is still not over. We're still walking through it. And so this is why I appreciate them putting in this final comment. They're saying walking slowly. When faced with outbreaks, local officials are being asked to avoid citywide mass testing unless transmission chains are unclear. Now, the leadership appears to be bracing for a surge of infections as winter sets in and easing takes hold. More resources for healthcare facilities, including hospital beds, and a renewed push for vaccination, particularly amongst older people, is happening. But these policy changes are in the right direction. But if you want China to reach the end game immediately, that's not possible. And that's exactly what was behind the sarcasm of the person who made that comment on the China Reddit post made, but you're not going to see it happen overnight. And once again, I really like the news reporters as they reported on this story, and I can't say it as well as a news reporter said it, and check it out.
All that said, it is a big turning point, but it's not a straight line from here. It's still going to be a very slow process. There's going to be a lot of volatility. I think that the bottom's in. I think the turning point's in. But I can see the next couple of weeks there being days of massive disappointment when people realize it's not suddenly an open China. There's still going to be targeted lockdowns. This story will still have volatility. It's just going to be upward volatility from here on out.
So in other words, the big takeaway here is that we're going to have ups and downs. There's going to be volatility. There's going to be targeted zero COVID lockdowns. But overall, it's an upward trajectory story. Now, how has Alibaba fared? Well, you can see that Alibaba is actually up slightly, but investors remain cautiously optimistic. The numbers and the strength of the economic recovery will be what matters here, and that's less certain as we head into a potential global recession, especially in the face of continued rising interest rates. Now, the inflation numbers provide us with some optimism, but we'll see how this plays out as sort of the Q4 or the fourth quarter progresses. Now, just a reminder, guys, that Alibaba is still the cheapest name on the tracker that the Patreons get access to at the lower tier at just $5 a month. You get access to the tracker, and you notice that the NYC Baba ticker symbol is highlighted in blue because that's a link, and you can link right into the model, which I've shown you guys many times on this channel. And so I still urge diversification. I don't want you guys to go all in on Alibaba or Chinese names. And so there's quite a few names on the tracker that are trading under 75% of their intrinsic value. So it's always important to consider diversification. Now, Facebook recently announced that they have made wide layoffs, which should sort of help the bottom line of the security. And the stock did surge 20%. I did a full dissection of that. And if you guys haven't seen that video, I'm going to link it right here.